Today, we're going to look at building a UGC production engine inside your business to ensure that you can get content at scale, get ready for Q4 in terms of the data you have for your content, and from there, start building and absolutely crush Black Friday and Cyber Monday all the way into Christmas. Now, this isn't just an engine for that period, but as we all know, Q4 is a fantastic time for the e-commerce brands, especially when doing it right. So that's why starting now has a lot of positive effects on your business. So just so you guys have an understanding of where we're going throughout this presentation, we're first going to do a quick introduction of myself. I'll introduce myself, why I'm even speaking on this topic, how this engine was built in the first place. Then we're going to go into the current methods and the difficulties associated with the current methods of UGC and the way out. Now, the way out starts with research. So we're going to go through the best research methods. Then we'll look into scripting and creator sourcing. That's kind of the beginning of the engine. And then we're going to go into testing the scale. That's the engine as a whole. It kind of runs as a loop. Again, we'll get to this further along. And then how you keep this engine running so you never run out of content, you're continuously testing. And the aim really that we want to build here is that you guys become leaders in the UGC ads that you're running on your ad account compared to the competitors, compared to your market, that you're really becoming innovative. But truthfully, is a step-by-step process. This is a lot of heavy work up front. However, it is very, very fruitful if you implement it correctly. So let's start off with a brief introduction. My name is Philip Speidel. I've been creating content that engages since 2018. When I was at university, I, at that point already wanted to create a brand. I went into the esports, popping at the time, and we needed to get people to join our tournaments. That was our whole business model. But as a uni student, as you can probably imagine, I had absolutely no revenue to do this. So what do? Organic social media. Within about 5 months, we gained over 300,000 followers across our channels, and we got over 10,000 members in our community actively playing in our tournaments. That was the first moment I really realized, okay, content is a lot of fun, and I think I've developed this skill to connect my brand's content to our ICP. From there was the birth of Extreme Socials. That's the company that we have built this engine with, and we have a sister agency out in Dubai implementing the same thing there for the UAE market. Says it in the name. So how this engine was actually built was through all of that work. We came together as we were working with our clients. We started running their ads for them as well, across Meta, across TikTok, to find out what's working. What we realized every time we tried to use the traditional method of working with UGC, we hit current pain points that I'm sure you guys have felt before. So one of the number one difficulties with this is the slow delivery and inconsistent campaign focus without a dedicated manager. Now, you can overcome this with having a dedicated manager, but really what I mean here is if you have, let's say you plan 8 videos for 8 creators, it's a bare minimum you should do, but let's say you plan that, you give out the brief with these creators that you find on platforms. The platforms in themselves are great by concept because we're able to reach a large number of creators that can create content for brands, right? However, because they've opened their gates up to so many different creators, it's kind of inconsistent in what you're getting. It's a lot of kind of hit and miss content. Some creators might never come back to you. Others will deliver results that are simply mid, in my personal opinion. They've just started CapCut a week ago and their editing's not really on par. And so out of those 8 videos, you get 4 and that are actually usable. The other 4 are all misses. So now you put the work in to get 8, but you only actually got 4. It's going to take you another month to get more, and then you're going through the same hit and miss. So that's one of the biggest difficulties we realized personally when working with UGC creators. That also gives you a complete lack of control over content deliverables. Again, creator responsiveness as well. And at this point, it's a slow process to actually get UGC content that you can rely on, that's going to convert for you. It also just takes way too long to gather the data. As I'm saying, if you have 8 videos, let's just use 8 as a benchmark. Only 4 are good, especially if you didn't take it from a data-driven approach, like actually looking what's the best hook, what's the best body, what's the best CTA. What you're going to end up having is you're going to say, okay, video 2 is performing really well, but why? There's no data that you can cross-compare to other variations of that individual ad. You want to actually have a solid answer. So going into the next month, it's still kind of an educated guess. We want to get out of that educated guess as quickly as possible. Now, an ideal scenario, what that would look like is that we have a high volume of data-led content that arrives to us quickly, right? All of those 8 videos, again, minimum, will come and they'll all be data-led, and we know these are going to work for us. We want to be able to track everything from the winning creators. Again, every brand is going to have a different ICP that registers with a different creator. What I mean there, it's going to have to do with gender, sex, and ethnicity, truthfully. Now, you can find this over time by switching out creators. You also have different B-roll, what B-roll is working for you, what hooks, what bodies, and what CTAs. When you have this, you need to be adaptive and quick content systems in place to test, develop, and progress. And essentially, that's what this engine is. This dream scenario can actually become a reality in 3 very simple steps. I say very simple, they are simple once you grasp them, but again, they're resource intensive in terms of your time, and it's also good to have individual people in place that fully focus on research to scripting to analytics, etc. We'll get more into this as we progress. So the research is very important, right? Regardless what you do, always try to put your best foot forward. Now, the places that you want to research are 3 individual spots. Your own ad account, right? I'm not here saying you guys have to reinvent the wheel. Everything you know, throw it out the window. I'd never say that. That makes absolutely no sense. Use the analytics in your ad account to know what's already working for you, and take those individual things and adapt them, make them slightly better. Again, we'll go into how to do that a bit later. Your competitors' ad library, find out what's working for them. Understanding what is working for them and why is going to give you great insights into what you should be producing as well. You can almost guarantee that if you find a creative that's being run on your competitors' ad accounts for months that you haven't used, if you reproduce that in the way that suits your brand and tone of voice, you're going to be flying with that creative as well. Next is the world of UGC. As I mentioned earlier, what we are trying to build here is make you guys leaders in the terms of content you're pushing. The way you become a leader is you find content from different niches, different markets that's been working really well for them and bring it into your niche and your market. So understanding the world of UGC is very important. We truthfully work with analysts here. There's people that are giving us weekly reports of what's happening across the globe in terms of UGC, what's best performing, the tools. I'll mention the tools as well later on. So if you can, get an analyst. It's going to be very, very helpful for you. So let's go into the first one, your own ad account. Now, I know that as a brand owner, what we care about really is the sales and the revenue. So key metrics are obviously going to be ROAS and your purchase conversion value and the amount of purchases you get. So when you're looking at your own ad accounts, definitely keep those in mind. However, to actually be able to drive real content and real content strategy, those aren't just the only metrics you should be looking at. You should be looking at hook rate, hold rate, and click-through rate. Now, with click-through rate, the one thing I will say that I've seen a lot of media buyers or brand owners do this wrong. They'll look at click-through rate all, which isn't an accurate representation of how convincing that ad was, because that's anything from pressing like, show more, right? See description, all of these interactions, any click will be recorded in CTR all. So what you want to have as a metric is CTR link click-through rate. That's an accurate representation of who actually came to your site. Now, just in case you don't know how to set up a hook and hold rate, when you go into doing your metrics and doing custom metrics, you'll be able to press on create a new custom metric. Hook rate is your 3-second play rate divided by the number of impressions, and your hold rate is your through plays divided by the number of impressions. Through plays simply means how many people watch more than 15 seconds. So now, when we're looking at your analytics, the first thing you want to do is you want to open up the past 3 months of analytics that you have. First, you want to filter, you want to look at your campaign and find out which has the highest ROAS and purchases compared to its purpose. And that's an important part, because I don't know how you guys have your media buying structured, but a lot of people run with a testing campaign and a scaling campaign, right, at a basic level. Your testing campaign is not going to be the most accurate representation of content that works. It's going to find new winners now, but the content, the ads that have been living in your scaling campaign for a couple of months, those are where the data really lies. So definitely look at a campaign that's relevant to this, which I'd say is more of your scaling campaign. Then you want to look at which ad sets have the highest ROAS and purchases, and now which ads have the highest ROAS and purchases. Again, this is just the generic filter we want to do. When we have all of these filters set up, I'd export it as a CSV, put it either into Excel or Google Sheets. And now we want to start looking at this nitty gritty. We want to look at hook rate, hold rate, and click-through rate. The reason this is important, hook rate is going to show you immediately who's stopping to watch, right? Did you have a scroll stopper as a video? So for example, if we use this pen that I have right here, if I say this pen is absolute trash and I'd never buy it again, most people are going to stop there because it's the opposite of an ad, which is usually shoving product features down their throats. But if I then went on for the next 15 seconds to explain how my water intake has been sub-ideal the past 3 days, no one's going to keep watching. No one's even going to get to your CTA because the messaging doesn't link. That's why hold rate is important. We need to understand the structure of your scripts that you produce that makes people not only understand the pain point, hooks them in, understands the pain point, then also understands that your solution, whatever the solution of your product is actually the one to go for. So we'll look into creative styles a little bit later as well. But once you have all of this data, start recording, start looking into your actual ads. Have a look at what elements there are. So for the hook, if you say, okay, these top 5 videos all have an exceptional hook rate, which, by the way, just so you have kind of benchmark metrics, a hook rate of 25% is average. It's decent. You can run with that. I wouldn't kill that ad. 30% upwards, you now have a really strong hook. 35% upwards, exceptional. So let's say you have 5 in that kind of exceptional rate. Now you have to start understanding exactly why. Look at the creator first. Okay, who was the creator? Is there a certain age range they fit into? Is there a gender they fit into? What is there in the creator persona? Afterwards, how was the hook done? We found for one of our clients, which was really interesting, that if the hook only lasted 2.5 seconds verbally, and the B-roll used was first a customer, then the product, and then the founder, we were able to consistently deliver above a 35% hook rate. So the more you do this, the more you actually look into these analytics and spend time in your ad account, you'll be able to identify patterns here. Now, this is why I mentioned we have an analyst that does this, because it is heavy work, right? It's not something you're going to look at for 10 minutes and have the answer. You are going to have to spend proper time in defining this. Then with a hold rate, you have people say online that a good hold rate is 30% plus. I personally think that's absolute nonsense, because they're talking about an ad that's 7 seconds long. So if you have an ad that's 7 seconds long with a 30% hold rate, you've done a mid job. You've barely even hooked them in. If you have a ad that's 30 to 45 seconds, which we see most best performing UGC lives around that area, then you should be aiming for a minimum 8% hold rate. Anything under that, you need to do some work. Anything to 10%, you've done a really good job. 11, 12%, you're exceptional. Your story is matching the hook. People are now invested. And that story is where we're highlighting pain points, failed solutions, and introducing your solution. So yes, basically, you're going to spend time in your ad account and you're going to start looking at all of these levels. Once you have the top performing in terms of ROAS and purchases, then stop looking at that number and start looking at hook, hold, and click-through rate. So moving on to, pardon me, our creative styles. Talking about water intake. Moving on to our creative styles. So as I said, when you're looking at your hooks, you want to look how long is the hook? How are they edited? Again, the example I had of the previous client, how were we using B-rolling them? How quick were they? What is the tone of voice? Sometimes a hook is way better off to be a soft tone of voice or a personal tone of voice. When I say personal tone of voice, it's usually relating to your own emotions. So I really love this pen, compared to an aggressive hook, which would be more like, if you don't have this pen, you're missing out. And that's less personal. So this is all stuff we're testing within the hooks. You're going to start recording this data. Body, what was the messaging structure? Little tip, what we're seeing right now across the board of our clients is that the best sequence that you should go for is hook, failed solution, pain point, failed solution, new solution, your product, and then CTA. That's kind of across the board for us right now, but this is the sequence of the story. There's other ways to do it, right? Instead of going into the pain point, first failed solution, then your hook carries a bit of the pain point. Then you go deeper into the pain point, how that failed solution made your pain point so much worse, but finally you found the good solution, your product. There's different ways to do this, but this is what you want to look when you're recording these analytics. How are they edited? Again, is it quick style? Is there a lot of B-roll? Is there minimal B-roll? Is it kind of just very raw? It's just a creator holding the camera and just speaking at the camera. This is all stuff you want to be recording. CTA, how aggressive are they? Very similar to the hook. We can have aggressive CTAs and we can have soft CTAs. Aggressive CTAs are CTAs where click this link below. You know you need it. That is an aggressive CTA. A soft CTA could be a simple, we'll use the pen example again, as simple as, I finally found the pen that works for me. It's soft. We haven't told anyone to click. A lot of what we see is that soft CTAs work better because then the viewer actually believes they're not really being sold to. That decision to press the link was theirs. They weren't told to. It's a bit of a psychological game. So we're seeing, just if you want to test this out tomorrow already, try some soft CTAs. They work quite well. B-roll, what angles? Now, we'll get into this a little bit later when I tell you how to structure your ads in terms of B-roll and scripting, but honestly, get everything. But to record what works best, to get the data of what works best, Understand what angle. Was it a top-down shot of the pen? Was it a side profile of the pen? Was it me dropping the pen onto the book? What is actually working in terms of your B-roll? What is the length? What is the length of your B-roll? What we find is a very nice editing style that you can just, again, do tomorrow or tell your editor is mirroring. People get bored very, very quickly. We think about why they're on social media. It's the doom scroll, essentially. So the brain kind of gets triggered when you have different angles, which is why we get as much B-roll as possible. But if your B-roll is a bit long to show the story, a very simple trick is cut the clip in half and put a mirroring effect. Essentially what that does is it looks like it was shot from a different angle. That minor trick is going to increase your hold rate. So was the B-roll product focus, or was it more story focused, solution focused, of having a better life? Now also quality of lighting. This actually has a massive impact, because when we go for UGC content, if we make it too polished, it's just going to feel like an ad. So is every video of yours that's working the best actually with kind of a bad light? You're just using natural light, you don't have a whole setup of different lights? Or is it the other way around? Is your product so aesthetically pleasing for the viewer that we do actually need those really, really good shots? So now let's look into your competitor's ad account. Kind of like your ad account, it's not about reinventing the wheel. And as I said, if you look into your competitor's ad account and there's a creative they've been running for a while that you aren't running, that is the first thing that you should go and do tomorrow. Have a look at recreating it after understanding why it works, again, with the creative styles that we just spoke about in the previous slide. Open Meta Ad Library, open TikTok ad library, and have a look. Type in your competitor's name. It's usually just their Instagram handle. You probably know their Instagram handle. Scroll down as far as possible in their ad account and start there. Many people don't do this, and it kind of frustrates me, because the only reason an ad is going to be living on your competitor's ad account for over a month, over 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, is because it's delivering them sales and revenue. That's the only reason it's going to be working. So if you start analyzing ads they've been running for 2-3 days, they're only just in the beginning of the testing phase. They may have not even left their testing campaign. So you might look at that, go, oh, that's really cool, that's really creative, but they don't even know if it works. What they do know works is really, really far down. So I just did a quick thing on Loop to show you guys. Essentially what I did here when it loads up is I had a look, because it would take way too much time for me to do this here because Loop is a big brand. But I scrolled all the way down to their first ad on the ad account, and it was in May. So I've just now put in a filter from between May 1st and May 31st so we can see what's actually running. Now, we're not talking about statics, but this also works in research for statics. Look at how they're speaking about it. They're using emojis here. They're using, different type of text, headline, etc. But what you want to start doing is you want to start watching these individual videos. You start at the very bottom. So here you just open it up and you start recording different things. So I've turned the audio off so you can actually hear me while speaking. But this video starts with them dropping the product. So as I said, this is a B-roll angle to record, and whispering. Makes sense. It's all about noise reduction. Now they're opening the product and they're showing it in what I'd actually classify as not an aesthetic way if you compare it to some of the ads nowadays. So you start writing this down. You take your book and just write this down. At first, this will really, really feel like you're not actually fully focused on getting data. It will feel like a mumbo jumbo of different information. But when you have this down, trust me, you will be able to identify patterns. Use a highlighter, use sticky notes, start circling stuff that you find. Again, this is why I do recommend, if you have the budget, get yourself an analyst to do this. You will find patterns of what is working for them. If you do this really well, and over time, you'll start finding patterns before they do, which will then work into your testing bucket of content. I'll get into a bit more detail with that later of what a testing bucket is. So yeah, your competitors, really have a look there. They will give you a lot of information about what's working. But the next thing is the world of UGC. As I said at the very beginning, what we want to do here is we want to become innovative with our ads we create. We want to become leaders. We want to find the next trend in terms of content that's going to deliver the strongest ROAS, lowest CAC, as quickly as possible. And that's where this engine comes into play. When you start gathering this data, and we'll go into analytics, tracking analytics, and how to actually consistently win in the next couple slides. But that's to become that leader, you need to be able to look into what others are doing outside of your niche, outside of your market, outside of your competitor and your ad account. So sites to use here, I suggest Winning Hunter is one of our favorite ones to use, because not only can you see what's best performing across Facebook ad library, and TikTok ad library. You can then also see the actual impact it is having on the store. Kind of similar with Koala Inspector. This is all AI based, but it's really, really good. Not only can you see the ads that are winning, the products that are winning for your competitors, you can then click onto that and see all the ads that they've run to make that individual product go crazy, right? So this will give you great data of what's happening. It's not even your competitors, just anyone. If you see patterns here, okay, everyone in the US, for example, if you're just targeting the UK or the Middle East, and you see everyone in the US is doing this one thing, but none of our competitors are doing it in our market, it's worth a test. I'd honestly recommend testing that. That's how you're going to start becoming a leader within your market and these different creative styles. Yeah, another thing is your feeds. This is an undervalued gem. We have actually a test, I call it a research Instagram account. What you do there is make a new Instagram account, just start scroll your feed. At first, it will be very generic. And when you come across a UGC ad for an e-commerce brand, go engage with it. What happens if you go engage with it, especially one that looks good, right? If you go engage with it, you start messing around, add to cart on their site, sign up to their newsletter, go into their retargeting bucket, so you start getting more of their ads. Also Meta, because you keep engaging with these type of ads, will go, oh, this person likes ads. So they'll start giving you more of these UGC ads. And essentially it's such a useful research tool because we all can't work at 100% all the time, right? So when you're like, I want to do research, but I'm tired, it's 8 p.m., had a long day. Imagine you can just sit on your sofa, open Instagram like you might do anyway, and now you're actively doing research. Anything that's good, send to your analyst, get them to review it some more, get them to dig deeper into that. For an example here, just so you kind of see where this leads to, we're going to use negative hook videos. Now, they've been working over the past 2 months really, really well. Essentially, what a negative hook video is you're speaking about your product, your solution in a negative light. Sounds counterintuitive, but it really works because it is that kind of scroll stopping. Again, if I'm trying to sell this pen, but I start by saying this is the worst pen ever, people are going to think it's not an ad, so I'm going to stick now. And then if you watch through the video and I'm still just speaking negatively about it, then people are going to go, oh, it's still not really an ad. If anything, it's a bit engaging. Obviously, they will know it's an ad because you can see it's an ad, but you know what I mean here. I'm not just forcing down the product USPs and the solution down their throat immediately. People are bored of that stuff. So that's why negative hook videos have been working quite well. And now let's have a quick look into this. So negative hook videos are working well. The stuff that we can look at from the data we found is that a polished UGC style for these videos works well. Now, this is a term that we like to use internally quite a bit and with our clients. Polished UGC is essentially the opposite of raw UGC, which is polished UGC is you have a lot of B-roll. It looks clean. It's still UGC in terms of the voice that's being used, in terms of the creator that's being used. It's filmed at home or the creator out in public. There's a lot of B-roll. You're showing your product in a really nice light or your solution in a really nice light. So we found that most of these negative hook videos that have been running for a while were polished UGC. They're 30 to 40 seconds in length, and it's ironic through and through. And this is where we've seen some brands make a mistake. They'll go, this is the worst pen ever. But then the body is positive. It writes excellent. I never run out of ink. It has a tracker, so I can never lose it. So if I forget it at the office, that doesn't work. Your hold rate is going to plummet there after your hook rate. And the aim that we have is a high hook rate, hold rate, and then click-through rate. So now that we knew this, we could start going into actually building this whole engine. So again, research, I spend a lot of time on this. It's very, very important because it's going to guide you to make data-led content. And now this is how we're actually going to use this research to build this engine. So let's say we're talking about the negative hook videos as an example, but this is not just negative hook videos. This is every video you do. Each individual video, so I'm not saying a new video, each individual concept, one video should have at least 2 hooks, 2 bodies, and 2 CTAs. That alone is going to give you 8 total variations of one video. You produce 20 videos like this a month, you have 160 different videos that you can now test throughout the month. You're going to avoid ad fatigue. You're going to actually get data on what the best hooks are, bodies, and CTAs. So every single script should have 2 hooks, bodies, and CTAs. Again, all of this is not just random. It's all data-led from what we were talking about earlier with the creative styles that we had a look at. Now, in terms of shot list, this is where we can go from 8 variations to almost unlimited. I'm going to summarize this point before I get into it because it's the most important thing. Get as much B-roll as you can. You never know what angle will work. We've been surprised multiple times by getting an angle that man, could potentially work based on what we've seen somewhere else, but we don't get it. It doesn't look as aesthetic as the other B-roll we have. You run it and it's insanely good for you. So just saying, get as much as you really, really can, but get every single angle, always every single angle, every product use possible, even funny product use possible. There's a video from the research that we were doing on Loop as well earlier, where they literally took the failed solution, which for them would be standard earplugs, you know, those ones you just kind of twirl up and put in your ear, and then just throwing them at the camera, stuff like this. So get every type of B-roll you possibly can. Get noise back B-roll. That's where you don't actually cancel out the audio. So if you're out in traffic speaking, you keep the traffic in rather than just the voice. But the key element here, beyond just getting as much as possible, is the ones that have to 100% be in there is the data-led ones. Everything you found from your own research, from the UGC world, and from your competitors. That is going to now give us 100 ways that we can Lego together an ad. If you think about these ads more as like a Lego set, you just have a bunch of random Lego tiles. But when you start having data, what you have there is the actual instruction manual of how you place these together to get the success that you're after. So here's a script example. We now know we need 2 hooks, 2 bodies, and 2 CTAs. I know there's only 1 body in there, but what we did with this one, this is an actual client, by the way, they gave us permission to use this. What we did here is we switched out the structure of the body, if that makes sense. So the hooks, negative video. I won't read this whole script to you guys, but just so you have an understanding. Here are 3 reasons this sleep kit ruined my life. And this is actually fully data-led, because what worked for them before really, really well were listicle videos. So we thought, why don't we pair the listicle video with a negative hook concept? That's why here are 3 reasons this sleep kit ruined my life. Then 3 ways this sleep kit completely ruined my ability to complain about anything, 2 different hooks. Now the body basically goes into how they now feel a lot better and they're more approachable, and now they can't complain about being tired or slack off of work. The whole thing, however, is ironic through and through. It's a complaint through and through whilst pushing the product simultaneously. Now, the CTAs, again, this is all data-led. We found that soft CTAs work very well. So yeah, ruined my excuses, fixed my sleep, totally worth it. Now, I'm just saying it kind of normal. The creator would have said this in a very ironic way. So now we know soft CTAs, hence these, negative through and through based on our research. Hook variations as well, listicle worked well. We're going to run these listicle ones. And we're going to switch out the order here. Essentially what we did here is we put the longer version at the top and then kind of went through it a bit afterwards. So now that we have all of this, we have all of these ads. You're going to have make 20 ads, 8 variations of each. What are we actually going to do with this? Well, before we go into actually producing the ads, we need to make sure we work with the creators as best as possible. So truthfully, I'll be honest with you guys, actors I find better than most UGC creators. There's a platform called mandy.com. I'm giving you that here. It is what we use for most of our creators. The ones that we don't currently have partnerships with, the ones that are good, we keep, create direct kind of contracts with, because they're good for us and our clients. But when we're searching for new ones, mandy.com, I cannot recommend it enough. If you think about it, if you make a good enough listing and you find actors that feel your pain points, let's say you're in sportswear and you have this new breathable technology, you're going to find an actor that consistently wears sportswear and is in the gym the whole time. They'll not only embody the pain points that you're overcoming with your product, they're also actors. Their whole gig is to embody a new persona that you tell them to then go deliver your script. Compared to some UGC creators, the ones that haven't been doing it for long, that you might get through the traditional methods, which is going to be a hit and miss. Here, you know it's not a hit and miss because you've vetted them. You know what's going to work, and they're actors and they have this skill. Now, the next important part that I know it sounds a bit harsh, but they're not marketers. They should not get any creative freedom. What we do here is we make sure that our creator expert, creator manager within the company briefs them on the company. They brief them on all the data, and I do this as well. Brief them on all the data, set up an hour-long call. It doesn't have to take an hour. Some will clock it right away because they've heard of your solution before. Others maybe not. And then you basically sit with them for this hour, give them the data, why these videos are being made, the most important features of the videos, and you tell them to follow it bit by bit. When it comes to following the brief, what they have to, no questions asked, do give you all the B-roll that you told them to. This is the shot list that you make based on, again, the data and then all the other options, possibilities you can think of. They have to stick with that. They have to follow the hooks and the CTAs to a T, because we're testing all these different angles all these different methods of running the hooks. And the body is only where we allow some flexibility. This is where your creator choice is important. Make sure they actually do embody the pain that you're fixing through your product. But you give them some flexibility in the wording choice, something that feels more natural, because we want authenticity out of UGC, but not the structure. If we tell them very clearly that the video is 40 seconds long and the first 22 seconds have to be about the pain point, and it has to follow pain point, failed solutions, new solution, then that's exactly what you want after them. Give them guiding scripts on all of those parts, but let them speak in their own language, so it comes across more authentic for when you actually go and run the ad. So now we have all these ads, we have all these videos. Now we need to do the analysis of it when we start launching it. So the first thing you're going to do for every single ad, you're going to launch 2 variations to start. I know I said there's 8, but you're only going to launch 2 to start. You're going to have variation 1, which is hook 1, body 1, CTA 1. Variation 2 is going to be hook 2, body 2, and CTA 2. You're going to run these against each other at the same spend. So they both get in the exact same spend, and you're running them to see the, obviously, ROAS purchase, as we said, but you're really looking here into the hook rate, the hold rate, and the click-through rate, again, link click-through rate of these videos. So you're running them against each other. We have our own naming conventions. You guys might have your own, so this might not work, but what we do is this is video 1.0, which meaning it's variation 1, and this is still video 1.1, making it variation 2. This works for us and our clients. Obviously, if you have different naming conventions, set it up differently, but this is how we're tracking them against each other. Now, what are we looking at on a weekly basis and a monthly basis? How are we doing this kind of dynamic testing? As you start to spend across all variations, look into the core metrics again. So your hook rate, your hold rate, and your click-through rate, and of course, your ROAS, what is generating you the sales. Here's an example. If you find that variation 1 has a high hook rate and a high hold rate, but a low click-through rate compared to variation 2, this is where you go after, depending on how much you're spending, but I'd say even as close as 3, maybe 5 days if it's still uncertain by data, you go, okay, interesting. We find that variation 2 has a higher click-through rate, but it's not really getting cheap CPMs. The hook rate is mediocre, the hold rate's mediocre, but version 1 has high versions of both. You're going to take the hook from version 1, the body from version 1, and the CTA from version 2, and our data shows that this new version should run at a cheaper CPM than version 2 with a higher click-through rate than version 1. Basically, it's a more optimal ad. Now, you may be thinking, okay, but what if both are kind of really doing well and we don't really want to make a third version, we make a third version, it doesn't work that well. That can happen sometimes, very truthfully. But this is why we shot so much B-roll. Sometimes it's down to the B-roll of what's working, what's not. That's your next test. You're going to look into, okay, how much B-roll was used in the 2 winners compared to the new third version? Did we decrease that by chance? What have we done differently here? So you start getting really into the nitty-gritty, and this is why it's dynamic testing that's going to avoid ad fatigue, because out of the videos that you shot, you have more than enough, even at really high spend limits, to go the whole month of just testing these different angles. So this is the engine as a diagram. So just to kind of remind of where we've gone through, we went through the data part, that is your ad account, your competitor's ad library, and the world of UGC. Following that data, you went into scripting, right? You looked at all the different ways you can script, you made the best possible version based on the data you have. Then you go into the creator brief. You spend some time with the creators. You told them what not to do, what to do, what B-roll they need, the hooks they have to follow, the CTAs they have to follow, and the body structure they have to follow. They take that and they go into production. Then I'd use your own editor because of the issue with some creators and just not being good at editing. You don't want to let any outside factors like that ruin the chance for you to get more data and also win. So we use our own in-house editors. I suggest you do the same. There's a lot of really good UGC editors out there. Get them edited, put the 2 versions up. Now we have a little mini loop here going on for the month. What we just spoke about, which variation is outperforming the other one, which B-roll is outperforming the other one. Let's test every 3 days, every 5 days. That data is fed back in our team, and how I suggest you set it up, by the analyst to the editor. The editor makes a new version, back up, analyst is recording that, and as such, you're going through. Now, what we have here, this engine is going to allow you to produce data-led content at scale, a high volume of content, giving you more and more insights every single month you put through it. After this webinar, you guys are going to get a whole this whole presentation, and I've added a couple extra slides for you guys, which kind of summarizes these points, so you guys can have a better read over it if you have any questions to resort back to. But essentially, this is the engine, and this is an exponential engine. Now, guys, just a sip of water real quick. So yeah, that is essentially the engine. I think what I want you guys to really kind of take from this is data, 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 and also really stress the way you structure all of your ads to capture as much data as possible. Make sure you're looking at the hold rate. Make sure you're working with an analyst whose whole job it is to connect all the dots, make a Google sheet from everything you've seen in your ad account, your competitor's ad account, etc., etc. These are all the key things that I really think you should take home from here.